Google CEO grilled by lawmakers from both sides of the political aisle on Capitol Hill today. Fox Business's Edward Lawrence is there with the details. Edward.
And Melissa, Google CEO Sundar Pichai defended Google, saying there was no bias, conservative or anti-conservative bias in their search engine. He says they use algorithms in that search engine, and the algorithm is monitored and worked on by 1,000 people, so no one person can manipulate it. It was a very interesting moment. Well, Republicans first, were kind of uneasy about that, and they believe that there's a culture of liberalism at Google that is seeping through into everything that they do. Now, there's an interesting moment this morning when the CEO said that they were not planning on launching a search engine in China. However, this afternoon, sort of mincing words a little bit, saying that they had actually completed development on one that could work in China. Listen.
Did Google design a prototype for a search engine that could be used in China to censor content?
We've developed and explored what search could look like if it were to be launched in a country like China.
And Pichai said it took a couple of months and 100 people to work on that particular search engine. Now, Democrats mainly and some Republicans focus on the privacy issue. Representative Val Demings said that Google needs to do more to protect consumer privacy.
What do you think is the main area where Google could improve to better help the consumer?
I always
better protect the consumer.
I always think, privacy is an area where we think is sacrosanct. So it's an area we are committed to doing better, but it's an area I want to acknowledge that there's more to do.
And Democrats say they would like to see the Google CEO come back before the Judiciary Committee next year when they take over, and they want to talk about regulating the tech industry. Back to you, Melissa.
And hopefully then the president won't have a press conference in the Oval Office that then wipes all this news off the face of the earth so no one remembers it. Edward Lawrence, thank you for recapping for us. We appreciate it.
That's called Tuesday in Washington.
That's called Tuesday. Yeah, I love it. All right, thank you.
Washington.
Thank you.
Day that ends in a Y. Congressman Tom Marino was on the committee today, the House Judiciary Committee that handled the questioning of the Google CEO, and joins us now from Capitol Hill. Congressman, thanks for coming on. I was watching your questioning and the follow-up on Edward's reporting there. You really raised the China issue with the Google CEO, and then to his point in the afternoon, he was asked about a prototype, as he told you earlier in the hearing that we have no plans to get into China. Is the answer good enough for you today?
No, it wasn't good enough for me, and I knew about the prototype. I ran out of time because that's the next area I was going to get into. But it's ironic that he said that no one person would have the ability to manipulate the logarithms that they have that sends out information. But look at it from this perspective. Maybe not any one person, but don't forget over 93% of the people who work there contributed to liberals, and so collectively they certainly can get the messages out that they want to do.
Right, so you're talking now about, obviously you're talking about the conservative bias, or the allegations of conservative bias. Now, you didn't raise that. A lot of your colleagues raised that, but I noticed you chose to use your 5 minutes, as you said, on China. So
exactly.
So
and that's
why did you do that, by the way?
Well, because China is a very big concern to me. As I said, we know that right now as we speak, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Chinese are sitting at computers attempting to hack into the United States and anywhere they can, financial system, defense system. And Russia's doing the same thing, but not to the level that the Chinese can do it because of their population. And when I asked him, I said, do you plan on, I didn't say plan, what business are you going to get into with China? Well, we don't plan on that. And that's why I quickly went to the next question. Well, when you do decide, or if you do decide, how much information are you going to give? And he said he'd come back to you,
right? He said he'd come back, which is interesting. What's the responsibility of an American company, in this case Google, when they're operating? A lot of American companies obviously do operate in China. Maybe it's a little different for a technology company. What is his responsibility? Does he have one to actually come back to Congress and talk about what the operations would look like for a private company going into China?
He certainly does. He does have a responsibility. That's why I started out my questioning with a statement to him that he has a responsibility, an enormous responsibility, obviously to his company, but more so to the American people, of being fair, down the middle, not swaying. No other entity out there that deals with news, whether it's TV, radio, or print, has the power all at once to be in contact with tens and hundreds of millions of people, and he knows that. They know that. And I'm just concerned that profit is going to take over here at the risk of China getting a lot of information about what Google is doing in the United States to serve their needs. What's to prevent them from saying, okay, we'll do business, but we're going to do business according to what we want, and we want to know if someone even comes into our country from the United States. We want to know what information they have.
It's interesting, Congressman. I feel like you earlier today. I have a lot of other questions, but I'm out of my time here as well. They're giving me the buzzer. So thank you very much for coming on, Congressman Marino. We'll talk about this more in the future. Thanks for coming on today.
You're
All
welcome.
right, Scott and Jonathan are back with us. Jonathan, I think one of the biggest problems is that we've heard these CEOs get out there before in earnest. I mean, we've heard Facebook's CEO and COO stand out there and talk about how, they didn't know there were Russians on the side using whatever, and they, and acting like we're about all the good in this country. We just want to do good, do no evil. And then you find out later when their boards leak to the media that that's not at all what was going on. So when you see someone like this out there, you just, I don't know, do you believe the words he's saying? How do you feel about it?
I believe the words that the CEOs are saying. They're in an incredibly difficult spot, Melissa. I mean, they are literally on the hot seat, but not by their customers, but by legislators. Legislators who not just have the power to regulate it, but from both sides of the aisle who seem just inevitable that some sort of regulation is coming down the pike. And, this comes at just exactly the worst time for these FANG companies, these big high-tech companies, especially dealing with the consumer. They're the ones that led the bull market up. And, Melissa, my fear is that this impending regulation is only a negative for these stocks, whether the companies deserve it or, as I believe, whether they don't.
Okay, but Scott, I mean, you read reports in the New York Times about the fact you go into, a restaurant with your phone. They're tracking that you've been in Chick-fil-A, and they're going to sell that information to Kentucky Fried Chicken so that they can send you ads, even though you're not using your phone for anything while you're in the store. We all know they're tracking us, but the depths to which they are following us and then profiting off that information and then not necessarily being very straightforward about what's going on, you start to wonder how free should these companies' free markets be when they're basically, a lot of them, like Google and Facebook, in a near monopoly position.
Yeah, it's scary. I went to Taco Bell for lunch, by the way, and it was wonderful.
I know.
Jonathan,
I saw that on your phone. Yeah, your cell phone carrier told me about that.
It's probably posted on a bunch of sites. Yeah, I'll put it on Fox Business later. Jonathan, don't make me come over there. I believe you're in Chicago, too, because here's the thing, man. Regulators, they've been toothless. The legislators have been completely just not biting on this whole thing. They haven't regulated anything. The companies, we find out more and more, are using things with our data, breaching privacy of ours that, frankly, they shouldn't be doing. Now, to the point of the CEOs, Melissa, and rolling back whatever they've done and promises, I do think to some degree, I guess to sympathize with Jonathan's viewpoint, this problem or what's going on with the data and everything they have access to nowadays with respect to the consumer is probably bigger than them. And it's frankly, the companies don't realize all the data they actually have now and all the things they can do with it to where they probably can't prevent themselves from actually doing something with it. I'm telling you, they've got so much data on us, we probably haven't even scratched the surface yet. That's something that's going to come out in the months to come, and it's scary.
Well, thank goodness I sign on to my phone as Conal McShane. I would be really sad. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your time. Yeah, good stuff.
I wouldn't do that if
especially when I do something illegal.
Exactly.
I always tell my phone I'm you.
I was thinking that. Find my Melissa.